Commander Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair aboard the Horizon Dawn and watched the stars blur past the view screen. His ship was small, just a research vessel with basic shields and almost no weapons. But it was his home, and his crew trusted him. The distress signal came through at 0400 hours, breaking the quiet of the night shift. Lisa Park, his communication officer, turned to him with wide eyes and said the message was from Barton Colony on the edge of known space. "They're under attack, sir," Lisa said, her voice tight with worry. "Crash warships, 3 of them, maybe more." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Crash Empire was known across the galaxy as ruthless slavers who showed no mercy to weaker species, and humans were definitely on their list of targets. "How many people at the colony?" Jake asked. 300 civilians, mostly families," Lisa replied. "They have minimal defenses, sir. Nothing that can stop a Crash War fleet." Jake looked at his navigator, Amy Chun, who was already pulling up the star charts. The colony was 4 hours away at maximum speed, but they had no way of knowing if those people would last that long. "Set course for Barton Colony, full speed," Jake ordered. He knew this was dangerous, knew his science ship couldn't fight 3 Crash destroyers. But he couldn't ignore people who needed help. His first officer, Kevin Martinez, stepped closer and lowered his voice so only Jake could hear. "Sir, we have 43 crew members and almost no firepower. If we go there, we might not come back." Jake met his eyes and said, "Then we'll make sure we save as many as we can before that happens." The Horizon Dawn raced through space, its engines pushed to their limits. Jake spent those 4 hours planning, looking at every possible way to evacuate the colonists without getting his ship destroyed in the process. When they arrived at Barton Colony, the situation was worse than he had feared. 2 Crash destroyers orbited the planet, their weapons hammering the colony's shields, while a 3rd ship hung back, clearly the command vessel. "The colony shields are at 20%, Amy reported. "They have maybe an hour before total collapse." Jake studied the tactical display and saw his only advantage. The planet was surrounded by a dense asteroid field that the Crash ships were avoiding. If he could use those asteroids for cover, maybe he could get close enough to evacuate survivors. "Lisa, open a channel to the colony." Jake sighed a moment later. The colony administrator appeared on screen. A woman named Claire, whose face was covered in dust and blood. "Thank God someone came," she said, her voice breaking. "We thought we were going to die here." "We're going to get you out," Jake promised. "Gather everyone at the main landing pad. We'll come in fast and load as many as we can." Claire nodded, and the screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew and started giving orders. They would make 3 runs, using the asteroids to hide their approach each time, grabbing colonists and running before the Crash could target them properly. The first run worked perfectly. Jake brought the Horizon Dawn screaming through the asteroid field, dodging rocks the size of buildings while his pilot held steady. They landed for 90 seconds, loaded 70 people, and escaped before the Crash destroyers could get a lock on them. The second run was harder. The Crash were expecting them now and had moved their ships to cut off escape routes. But Amy found a narrow path through the asteroids, and they managed to grab another 80 colonists by the 3rd run. Jake knew their luck was running out. The Crash command ship had moved into position and was clearly coordinating the other destroyers to trap the Horizon Dawn. "This is the last run," Jake told his crew. "Make it count." They dove toward the planet one more time, weaving through the asteroids as Crash weapons fire lit up the darkness around them. They landed, loaded the last 50 colonists, and lifted off just as the colony shields collapsed completely. But when they cleared the atmosphere, Jake saw the trap closing around them. 3 Crash destroyers had positioned themselves to block every escape route, and behind them, coming around the planet's moon, was the command ship. "All routes are blocked, sir," Amy said quietly. "We can't get through." Jake stared at the tactical display and knew she was right. They had saved 200 people, but now those people would die along with his crew unless he could think of a miracle. The crash command ship broadcast a message in broken human language. "Surrender now, or we will destroy you." Jake looked at his crew and saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They had known this might happen when they came here. "Not a chance," Jake said to the crash. "We don't surrender to slavers." He turned to Lisa and said, "Send out a deep space distress beacon, everything we've got. Tell whoever hears it to remember us." Lisa's fingers flew across her console, and moments later, a powerful signal burst out from the horizon dawn, carrying their final message into the vast emptiness of space. The crashed destroyers opened fire. Plasma bolts slammed into the horizon dawn shields, making the whole ship shake. Alarm screamed as the shields dropped to 60%, then 40, then 20. Jake gripped his armrests and prepared to give the order to ram the nearest destroyer. If they were going to die, they would take at least one crash ship with them. But then Lisa shouted something that made everyone freeze. "Sir, something's coming through on the sensors, something big." Jake looked at the view screen and saw space itself seem to tear open as a massive shape emerged from faster-than-light travel. It was a warship, human in design, but like nothing Jake had ever seen before. The ship was enormous, easily twice the size of the crashed destroyers, and its hull was covered in scars from countless battles. The transponder signal came through clear and simple. "Reaper." "Oh my God," Lisa whispered, staring at her console. "Sir, that ship, the Reaper, is not supposed to exist. It's a ghost story, a legend from the Contact Wars." Jake had heard those stories too. Tales of a ship that appeared when humans faced certain death. A ship commanded by a captain who had somehow become death itself. The crashed destroyers had stopped firing at the horizon dawn. They were all turning to face this new threat, and Jake could see on his sensors that their weapons were powering up, but the Reaper didn't wait. Its guns blazed with light, and the battle that followed would change everything. Jake thought he knew about what was possible. Kevin worked frantically at his science console, trying to scan the Reaper before it could leave. His fingers moved across the controls with desperate speed, because he knew this might be their only chance to understand what they were dealing with. "I'm reading massive energy fluctuations," Kevin said. "The reactor core is putting out power levels that should be impossible with human technology, even modern human technology." Jake watched the Reaper on the view screen as it slowly turned away from the colony. The ancient warship seemed to pulse with barely contained energy, like a living thing rather than a machine. "There's something else, sir," Kevin continued, his voice uncertain. "The hull is repairing itself. I can see microfractures from the battle sealing up in real time. We don't have technology that can do that." Amy pulled up historical records on her navigation console. "Sir, I found the original mission report for the Reaper," she said. 70 years ago, Captain Shaw and his crew of 112 were sent to investigate an ancient alien installation on the edge of explored space. "What kind of installation?" Jake asked, leaning forward in his chair. "The file calls it a predecessor vault," Amy replied. "The predecessors were an advanced alien race that disappeared millions of years ago. But they left behind technology that we still can't understand or replicate." Lisa joined in, pulling up more classified files that she probably shouldn't have access to. "The official report says the Reaper was lost with all hands when the installation self-destructed," she said. "But there are classified notes attached, written by survivors from an observation ship that was nearby." "What do the notes say?" Jake demanded. Lisa read from her screen. The survivors reported seeing the Reaper enter the installation, then witnessed a massive energy surge. When the installation exploded, the Reaper emerged, but it was different somehow. The ship was glowing with unknown energy, and it ignored all attempts at communication. The observation ship tried to follow, but the Reaper jumped to faster than light speed and vanished. Lisa continued. The survivors reported hearing strange transmissions before the Reaper left. Voices that sounded like Captain Shaw and his crew, but wrong somehow. Like they were speaking with multiple voices at once. Jake felt ice in his veins. What happened to those survivors? They were debriefed by military intelligence, and the entire incident was classified, Lisa said. The official story became that the Reaper was destroyed. The truth was buried. Kevin interrupted with new data. Sir, I've been comparing the Reaper's power signature to known technology types, he said. It matches some ancient artifacts that have been recovered from predecessor sites. Artifacts that seem to merge with human technology and enhance it beyond normal limits. You think Shaw and his crew merged with predecessor technology? Jake asked. I think they didn't have a choice, Kevin replied. Something in that installation changed them, bonded them to the ship somehow. They became part of it, or it became part of them. I can't tell which. Amy pulled up more historical data, her face pale in the glow of her console. There are other ships like the Reaper, she said quietly. Not many, but they exist. The Phantom, the Nightfall, the Last Stand, the Sentinel. All of them were lost under similar circumstances, all during missions to investigate predecessor installations. How many? Jake asked. 7 ships total, including the Reaper, Amy replied. Each one was crewed by volunteers who knew the missions were dangerous. Each one disappeared and was declared lost with all hands. And each one has been reported over the years, appearing to save human lives when death seemed certain. Jake stood up and walked to the view screen, staring at the Reaper as it prepared to leave. They sacrificed themselves, he said softly. Shaw and all the others, they gave up their humanity, their families, their entire lives to become guardians. But why? Lisa asked. Why would anyone choose that? Jake turned to face his crew. Because someone has to, he said. Because humans are vulnerable out here. Because we're still new to the galaxy, and there are species that want to destroy us. Shaw and his crew became the thing that protects us from the dark. The Reaper's engines flared bright blue, preparing for faster-than-light travel. Sir, should we try to follow them? Amy asked. Jake shook his head. No, he said. We let them go? They've earned their privacy and their secrets, but then something unexpected happened. The Reaper's communication channel opened again, not with video this time, just audio. It wasn't Shaw's voice. It was a woman, and she sounded tired beyond measure. Commander Morrison, she said. This is Tactical Officer Megan Torres of the Reaper. The captain wanted me to tell you something before we leave. I'm listening. Jake replied. The distress beacon you sent out, the one that said, remember us. It didn't just reach our ship, Megan said. It reached others like us, others who made the same choice we did. There are 7 ghost ships out here in the darkness, Commander, and all of them heard your call. Jake's breath caught in his throat. 7 ships? He repeated. We couldn't all come. We're spread across human space. But we heard you, Megan continued. And that's what I need you to understand. You're never alone out here. When humans face extinction, when death seems certain, we'll be there. We'll always be there. Why are you telling me this? Jake asked. Because the captain thinks you deserve to know the truth, Megan replied. You risked your life and your crew to save people you'd never met. That's the kind of courage that keeps humanity alive. And it's what we fight to protect. There was a pause, then Megan spoke again. We don't sleep anymore, Commander. We don't age, don't feel hunger or cold. The predecessor technology keeps us alive, keeps us bound to our mission. We gave up everything human except the one thing that matters most, the need to protect our own. Can you ever come home? Jake asked quietly. This is our home now, Megan said. The darkness between stars, the empty places where danger waits. We hunt the hunters. We stand watch while others sleep. It's not the life we planned, but it's the life we chose. Jake heard something in her voice, a mixture of pride and sorrow that made his chest ache. "Thank you," he said. "For everything? Take care of those colonists, Commander," Megan replied. "Make sure they know they're safe now." "That's all the thanks we need." The channel closed and the Reaper jumped to faster-than-light speed. Vanishing in a flash of blue light, Jake stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where the legendary ship had been. The first shot from the Reaper tore through space like a spear of pure light. Jake watched on his view screen as the massive beam slammed into the lead crash, destroyer shields, and burned straight through them as if they weren't even there. The crash ship tried to turn, tried to bring its own weapons to bear, but the Reaper was already firing again. Railgun rounds, old technology that should have been obsolete decades ago, punched through the destroyer's armor plating like it was made of paper. "Shields on that crash ship are down to 0, Kevin reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "How is that possible?" "Those destroyers have military-grade shielding." Jake couldn't answer because he was too busy watching the impossible. The Reaper moved like a dancer, its massive bulk somehow graceful as it dodged return fire from the other 2 crash ships. The lead destroyer exploded in a ball of fire and debris, and Jake heard gasps from his crew. No one had ever seen a crash warship go down that fast. Not even in the worst battles of the Contact Wars, sir. "The Reaper just disappeared from sensors," Amy said, her hands moving quickly across her navigation console. "It was right there and then nothing." But Jake saw it reappear on the view screen, now behind the second crash destroyer. The ancient warship fired a spread of torpedoes that streaked through space and slammed into the destroyer's engines. The crash ship tried to escape, but it was too late. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull, and then the entire reactor core went critical, turning the destroyer into another expanding cloud of wreckage. The third crash destroyer, the one that had been blocking their escape route, suddenly turned and tried to run. Its engines flared bright as it attempted to jump to faster-than-light speed, but the Reaper was faster. The ghost ship accelerated with impossible speed and cut off the fleeing destroyer's escape path. What happened next was not a battle. It was an execution. Jake ordered Lisa to record everything because no one would believe this without proof. The Reaper pursued the crash ship with ruthless efficiency, firing precisely targeted shots that disabled weapons, engines, shields, everything that might let the destroyer fight back or escape. Within minutes, the third destroyer was a drifting hulk, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The Reaper didn't even slow down. It simply turned toward the planet where the crash command ship and blockade fleet still waited. "They're going after the rest of them," Kevin said. "Sir, there are 5 more crash ships down there, including their command vessel." Jake knew he should stay back, keep his damaged ship and the rescued colonists safe, but he couldn't look away. His crew deserved to see what happened next, deserved to witness the legend that had saved their lives. The Horizon Dawn limped after the Reaper, staying far enough back to be safe, but close enough to observe the crash. Blockade fleet tried to form a defensive formation around their command ship, but the Reaper tore through their lines like they weren't there. 2 cruisers exploded before they could even fire their weapons. The crash commander, Warpack leader Vexenal, broadcast a message in his own language that the Horizon Dawn's computers translated. "Retreat. All ships retreat immediately." "It's one of the Void Hunters." Jake had heard that term before in intelligence reports. The crash and other hostile species had stories about human ships that brought death, vessels that appeared from nowhere and destroyed everything in their path. He had always thought those stories were propaganda, ways to scare enemy troops, but now he understood they were real. The remaining crash ships scattered in every direction. 2 more were destroyed by the Reaper, before they could jump to faster than light speed. And the command ship barely escaped with its hull burning. The Reaper hung in space near the now liberated colony, its weapons still glowing hot from the battle. Jake stared at the scarred hull and tried to understand what he was seeing. "Sir, I'm getting readings from that ship," Kevin said slowly. "They don't make sense. The power output is way beyond anything we can produce. And the hull composition matches human alloys from 70 years ago, but there's something else. Something I've never seen before." Lisa was frantically searching through the military database. "I found something," she said. "There are reports going back decades, scattered incidents where human colonies or ships were saved by a mysterious vessel. Always the same pattern. Humans in trouble, certain death, and then salvation." "How far back?" Jake asked. "The earliest report I can find is from 68 years ago," Lisa replied. "A mining outpost in the outer rim was about to be wiped out by raiders when a ship appeared and destroyed the entire raider fleet. Survivors described it as a human warship that fought like it had nothing to lose." Amy pulled up more data. "There are more incidents. 7 years ago, 15 years ago, 23 years ago, 40 years ago. Always the same ship or one just like it. Always appearing when humans face extinction." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He opened a communication channel to the Reaper and waited. Not sure if anyone would respond. For a long moment, there was only static. And then the video feed came alive. The man on the screen looked exactly like the old military photos Jake had seen in history files. Captain Danny Shaw, commander of the experimental warship Reaper. Lost during a classified mission 70 years ago, but that was impossible. Shaw would be over 90 years old by now if he had survived. Yet the man staring back at Jake looked maybe 40. His face weathered by combat, but his eyes burning with an intensity that made Jake want to look away. "The colonists?" Shaw's voice was rough, like metal grinding on stone. "Did you get them out?" "Yes, sir," Jake replied, remembering his military training, even though Shaw technically shouldn't outrank him anymore. "We saved 200 people, thanks to your intervention." Shaw nodded once, a short, sharp movement. "Good," he said. "That's what matters. That's all that ever matters." Jake wanted to ask 1,000 questions. How was Shaw still alive? Where had he been for 70 years? How did he always know when humans needed help, but before he could speak? Shaw leaned forward slightly and said, "Tell Command we're still out here. Tell them we're still fighting, still protecting our people. We'll keep showing up wherever we're needed." "Sir, I don't understand," Jake said. "How are you? How is this possible?" Shaw's expression softened slightly, something almost like sadness crossing his face. "We made a choice, Commander," he said. "My crew and I, we gave up everything to make sure no human ever dies alone in the dark. We became something more than human, something that can't stop, can't rest, can't ever go home." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, but Shaw was already reaching for something off-screen. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Commander. Humans are still new here, still vulnerable. Someone has to stand watch. Someone has to be the thing that monsters fear." The video feed started to break up. "Wait!" Jake shouted. "Please, I need to know more." Shaw's image flickered and stabilized for just a moment. "You did good today, Commander," he said. "You risked everything to save people you didn't know. That's what being human means. That's what we fight to protect." Then the feed went dark. Jake sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. The journey back to Coalition Command took 3 weeks. Jake spent most of that time in his quarters, writing and rewriting his report. He knew that what he was about to tell the admirals would change everything, or they would think he had lost his mind. The 200 rescued colonists were housed in every available space on the Horizon Dawn. Families crowded into cargo bays that had been converted to temporary living quarters. And children ran through corridors that usually only saw scientists and crew members on the second week. A little girl named Sophie found Jake in the observation deck. She was maybe 7 years old, with dark hair and eyes that had seen too much fear for someone so young. "Are you the captain?" she asked. Standing in the doorway, Jake turned from the window where he had been watching the stars slide past. "Yes," he said. "I'm Captain Morrison, but you can call me Jake." Sophie walked closer, clutching a small stuffed animal that looked like it had been through a war. "My mom says you saved us," she said. "She says you came even though the bad aliens might have killed you." Jake knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Your mom is very brave," he said. "She kept everyone calm while we were getting you out. But you were braver," Sophie insisted. "You came to help people you didn't even know." Jake didn't know what to say to that. He had just done what any decent person would do, what he hoped others would do if his own family was in danger. "Can I tell you a secret?" Sophie asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Sure," Jake replied. "When the bad aliens were attacking, I thought we were all going to die," Sophie said. "I was so scared, and then you came, and then that other ship came, the one that made the bad aliens run away. The Reaper," Jake said softly. Sophie nodded. "My dad says that ship was a ghost, a spirit that protects people. He says there are angels in space who watch over us." Jake felt his throat tighten. "Your dad might be right," he said. "There are people out there who gave up everything to keep others safe. Like you?" Sophie asked. "No, not like me," Jake said. "I'm just a regular person doing my job. The people on that other ship, there's something special, something we should all be grateful for." Sophie seemed to think about this for a moment. "Will they come back if we're in trouble again?" "Yes," Jake said with absolute certainty. "If humans are in danger, if people need help, they'll come. They'll always come." Sophie smiled and hugged her stuffed animal. "Good," she said. "I'm glad we have angels watching over us." After she left, Jake sat in the observation deck for a long time, thinking about Shaw and his crew, about the choice they had made and the price they were paying every single day when the Horizon Dawn finally reached Coalition Command Headquarters. Jake was summoned immediately to a secure briefing room. 5 admirals sat around a conference table, their faces grim as they reviewed his preliminary report. Admiral Helen Grant, the senior officer present, looked up as Jake entered. "Commander Morrison," she said, "we've read your report. Before we discuss it further, I need to know, are you absolutely certain about what you saw?" "Yes, ma'am," Jake replied, standing at attention. "Every detail is accurate. My entire crew witnessed the events, and we have sensor recordings and video footage." Admiral Grant exchanged glances with the other officers. "Commander, the Reaper has been officially listed as destroyed for 70 years, she said. "Captain Danny Shaw and his crew are honored as heroes who died in the line of duty. With respect, ma'am, they're not dead," Jake said. "They're very much alive, or something close to alive. They saved my ship and 200 colonists from certain destruction." One of the other admirals, a stern man named Chambers, leaned forward. "Commander, are you aware that there have been similar reports over the decades? Ships appearing to save human lives, then vanishing without a trace?" "Yes, sir," Jake replied. "My crew discovered records of at least 7 such incidents going back 68 years. Admiral Grant sighed and pressed a button on the table. The lights dimmed and a holographic display appeared, showing classified files that Jake had never seen before. "What I'm about to tell you is known to only a handful of people in the entire coalition," she said. Jake watched as the display showed images of ships, the Reaper, the Phantom, the Nightfall, and 4 others. Each file was marked with the highest security classification. "We've known about these ships for decades, Admiral Grant continued. We've known that Shaw and the other commanders made contact with predecessor technology and were changed by it. We've known that they've been appearing at critical moments to save human lives. Then why keep it secret? Jake asked. Why not tell people that we have guardians out there? Admiral Chambers answered. Because we don't control them, Commander. Shaw and his crews answer to no one. They operate completely independently, appearing when and where they choose. If we acknowledge their existence officially, it would raise questions we can't answer. It would also create panic, another admiral added. People would want to know why these ships can't be everywhere at once, why they can't prevent every disaster. We decided it was better to let them remain legends, ghost stories that give hope without creating false expectations. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. So you've been lying to everyone? Letting people think these heroes are dead when they're actually out there sacrificing everything. We've been protecting both them and the population, Admiral Grant said firmly. Do you think Shaw wants publicity, Commander? Do you think he and his crew want to be treated as curiosities or weapons? Jake had no answer for that. Admiral Grant continued. The truth is, we don't fully understand what happened to these crews. We know they merged with predecessor technology. We know they've been changed in ways that shouldn't be possible. But we don't know if they're still fully human, still fully conscious in the way we understand it. She pulled up more files. We've tried to make contact over the years. Sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. They accept supply drops when we can arrange them, maintenance equipment and spare parts that they use to keep their ships functional. But they refuse to come in, refuse to submit to medical examinations or debriefings. Can you blame them? Jake asked. They gave up their lives, their families, everything they had. Forcing them to come in would be like caging wild animals, which is exactly why we let them be, Admiral Grant agreed. But now you've had direct contact, a conversation with Captain Shaw himself. That changes things. Jake straightened. Ma'am, with respect, I don't think it changes anything. Shaw made his position clear. He and the others are going to keep doing what they've been doing, protecting humans wherever they're needed. And you're comfortable with that? Admiral Chambers asked. With having rogue warships operating in coalition space without oversight. They're not rogue, Jake said firmly. They're exactly what we need. Protectors who can't be corrupted or compromised, because they've already given up everything. The admirals debated for hours about what to do with Jake's report. In the end, they decided to classify it at the highest level and add it to the secret files about the ghost ships. Jake was ordered not to discuss what he had seen with anyone outside his immediate crew. But secrets have a way of getting out. Within days, rumors began spreading through coalition space about the battle at Barton Colony. Colonists who had been rescued told their families, who told their friends, who posted on communication networks about the mysterious ship that had saved them. Lisa brought Jake a datapad one morning, 2 weeks after their return. Sir, you need to see this, she said. The story is everywhere. People are calling it the return of the Reaper. Jake read through the posts and articles. Most were speculation and exaggeration, but the core truth was there. A legendary warship had appeared to save humans in need. Just like in the old stories. Command is going to be furious, Jake said. Actually, they're not, Lisa replied. I have a friend in the communications office who says the admirals have decided to let the story spread. They think it's good for morale. Jake looked up in surprise. They're allowing it? More than that, Lisa said with a slight smile. They're encouraging it. Apparently, recruitment numbers have gone up 30% since the story broke. People want to join the military, want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Jake thought about Shaw and his crew, about the choice they had made to become legends. Maybe the admirals were right. Maybe humanity needed these stories, needed to believe that someone was watching over them in the darkness. 3 months later, Jake received new orders. His actions at Barton Colony had earned him a promotion to captain and command of a proper warship. The Coalition was giving him the destroyer Valiant Dawn, a modern vessel with real weapons and strong shields. But before he accepted the new command, Jake made a request. He wanted his ship equipped with the same type of deep space distress beacon that it called the Reaper, the kind that could punch through interference and reach across vast distances. Admiral Grant called him personally to approve the request. "You understand that beacon is for emergencies only?" she said. "For situations where death is certain and there's no other option?" "I understand, ma'am," Jake replied. "But if I'm ever in that situation, if my people are facing extinction with no hope, I want to know I can call for help." "And you believe they'll answer?" Admiral Grant asked. "Yes, ma'am," Jake said without hesitation. "I believe Shaw and the others will always answer when humans are in trouble. It's what they gave up everything to do." Admiral Grant was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, Commander, I mean Captain Morrison, I believe that too. I've seen the classified reports, the incident logs going back decades. Those crews have saved thousands of lives, maybe tens of thousands. They're heroes, even if we can't acknowledge them officially." Jake took command of the Valiant Dawn 6 weeks later. His crew from the Horizon Dawn transferred with him. Unwilling to serve under anyone else, after what they had been through together, Lisa set up the new communication systems and made sure the deep space beacon was ready if they ever needed it. Kevin calibrated the sensors to detect the unique energy signatures associated with predecessor technology. Amy plotted patrol routes that would take them to the most dangerous sectors of space on their first mission. Jake gathered his crew in the briefing room. "I want everyone to understand what we're doing here," he said. "We're not just another patrol ship. We're going to the places where humans are most vulnerable, where colonies need protection and merchant ships need escorts. We're going to be the first line of defense," he continued. "And if we ever get in over our heads, if we face a threat we can't handle, we have a way to call for backup." His crew nodded. They all knew about the beacon, knew about the ghost ships that roamed the darkness. "But we're not going to rely on legends to save us," Jake said firmly. "We're going to be good at our jobs. We're going to protect our people with everything we have. The beacon is a last resort, nothing more." The Valiant Dawn patrolled the edge of Coalition space for 2 years. They escorted convoys, responded to distress calls, and drove off pirates and raiders. Jake became known as a fair but aggressive commander who took risks to protect civilians. Then came the day he had been dreading. The Valiant Dawn was escorting a convoy of colony ships through a dangerous sector when they were ambushed by a Kresh battle group. 6 heavy cruisers against Jake's single destroyer. The battle was brutal. Jake's crew fought with skill and courage, destroying 1 cruiser and damaging 2 others, but it wasn't enough. The Valiant Dawn's shields were failing, and his weapons were overheating. All escape routes blocked. "Sir," Amy reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can't get the colony ships out." Jake looked at the tactical display and saw 15,000 people on those colony ships, families trying to reach a new home. He couldn't let them die. "Lisa, activate the beacon," Jake ordered. "Send out the distress call." Lisa's fingers moved across her console. "Beacon active, sir." Message transmitting now. The Kresh cruisers closed in, preparing for the kill. Jake ordered all remaining power to forward shields and prepared to ram the nearest enemy ship. If he was going down, he would take at least one of them with him. Then space erupted with incoming ships. Not just 1, but 3. The Reaper, the Phantom, and the Nightfall. The ghost ships arrived like vengeful spirits, their weapons blazing. What followed was not a battle but a massacre. The 3 legendary warships tore through the Kresh battle group with terrifying efficiency. Within minutes, 4 Kresh cruisers were destroyed, and the other 2 were fleeing at maximum speed. Jake stood on his bridge, watching in awe as the ghost ships moved with perfect coordination. They weren't just fighting together, they were fighting as one, as if their crews could read each other's minds across the vast distances between vessels when the battle ended. Captain Shaw's face appeared on Jake's view screen. He looked the same as he had 2 years ago, unchanged and unchanging. "Captain Morrison," Shaw said, "I see you got that beacon installed." "Yes, sir," Jake replied. "Thank you for coming. We couldn't have survived without you." Shaw's expression softened slightly. "You did well, Captain. You fought hard, protected those colonists. That's all anyone can ask. Will I see you again?" Jake asked. "Maybe," Shaw said. "Maybe not. We go where we're needed, and we don't always know where that will be. But if you call, if any human calls when death seems certain, we'll hear it. We'll always hear it." The 3 ghost ships began to pull away, preparing to jump to faster than light speed. "Captain Shaw," Jake called out, "for what it's worth, I think you and your crews are the bravest people I've ever known." Shaw smiled, a brief expression that transformed his weathered face. "We're just doing what needs to be done, Captain. Take care of your people. That's all that matters in the end." The 3 ships jumped away, vanishing into the darkness between stars. Jake turned to his crew and saw pride in their eyes. They had fought alongside legends and survived. More importantly, they had helped save 15,000 lives. The colony ships continued on their journey, and the valiant Dawn escorted them safely to their destination, back on the Reaper. Captain Danny Shaw stood on his bridge and watched the tactical displays. His tactical officer Megan Torres stood beside him, her presence comforting in the way only another member of his eternal crew could be. "Another successful rescue," Megan said. "How many does that make?" Shaw thought for a moment. "I stopped counting years ago," he admitted. "What matters is that we're still here, still fighting, still protecting our people. Do you ever regret it?" Megan asked quietly. "The choice we made?" Shaw looked out at the stars, at the vast emptiness of space that was now his only home. "Every day," he said honestly. "I miss Earth, miss my family, miss being just a regular person. But then I think about all the people we've saved, all the lives that would have been lost if we hadn't made this choice. And," Megan prompted, "and we did the right thing," Shaw finished. Humanity needed guardians, needed protectors who couldn't be corrupted or controlled. We became those guardians. It's not the life I wanted, but it's the life I chose. And I'd choose it again. The Reaper's sensors detected a new distress signal. Faint but urgent, coming from somewhere deep in uncharted space. "Captain, we have another call," Megan reported. Shaw nodded and turned to his crew. "Set course," he ordered. "Someone needs help." The Reaper turned toward the new coordinates and jumped to faster than light speed. Vanishing into the darkness, the watch continued. Death stood ready, and humanity's enemies learned to fear the dark.